And then the last thing is under reports, you'll find an entry called advanced query. So we built this a few years back, and it's not necessary that you know how to use the advanced query tool just because you're going from the inspections module into some other modules. But I think we're finding more and more that counties are really getting used to it and liking it. In fact, the technical advisory panel just spent a not inconsiderable sum of money having us enhance the advanced query builder and allow you to share your saved queries with people. So if you build a really cool query, you can now put it on the shared list and other people can run it. So with the advanced query builder, there's a diagram in here that's a little old, but it'll at least have one effect, which is it'll make you want to leave the room. But it's a diagram of what the actual database behind CalPEATS looks like. And I seem to have a hard time opening PDFs today, but I'll let that. Here we go. So all you need to do is learn this, and then you can run the advanced query tool. There are some very technical people in the Ag Commissioner system, and this is great for them. We'll skip that, but be aware that in order to make this digestible, we have, what a horrible analogy, but I've got to say it out loud because it just popped in my head. We've pre-chewed the food for you. We've sort of pre-digested that big diagram into subject matter areas. So we start, when you're using the advanced query, you want to think about where you're starting from. And you can start from investigations, you can start from inspections, or you can start from enforcement responses. So when you're building an advanced query, you want to decide on your starting point. And if you look at that map, that big diagram I pulled up, we color-coded certain areas, and each one of those areas is one of those three things. And the idea is you start somewhere and then you branch out to pull in more and more information about it. So we choose a starting query, a starting table, inspections, investigations, enforcement responses, and then also Primer. Primer is another starting point that you can begin with. But I'll start with enforcement responses. Now, once I've picked a table, it goes down here into my list of tables, and the title up here changes to add join tables to the query. So if all I want is stuff about enforcement responses, I can pick the enforcement responses table and say I want the response number, the date it was closed, who the respondent was, and the permit number, license type, and license number. And as I choose these things, for anyone who's really into SQL, which is the query language, you can read the raw SQL down here, but mostly you just want to hit run query, and it's going to give me all those results in a table. And as long as they look like the results I want, there's 506 of them, I can hit export, and that will export that out to an Excel file. So those are my 506 enforcement responses that met my query criteria. So the next step would be, well, what if I want to filter that? So let me add a filter criterion that says I want the response close date to be greater than 1/1/2020. Okay, that did save there. So now I can run that query. Oh, sorry. Remove the empty one, run the query. So you'll see down here in the SQL, it added my close date is greater than 1/1/2020, and if I run that one, I'll get 83 items. So I can start to apply filters, and it gets complex here in the ands and the ors, and so I won't go into all that detail today. But the next thing I want is I don't just want the enforcement response, I want things that are attached to it. So now this drop down, instead of showing the beginning points, it shows me the next things that I can pull into my query. like I can look at the inspections that are associated with them. So now I'm getting enforcement responses and then the associated inspections that go along with those enforcement responses. So if I pick that join table, then I can say, okay, also include the inspection number. And now I'll run that query, and I'm still going to get 80 some items, and some of them are going to have an inspection number and some of them are not. Oh, did I not pick that? Yes. So there's all my inspection numbers. So you can see I've now reached out and I've joined in additional information. And if I wanted then to filter and say, well, I only want enforcement responses that came from 104 inspections, I can say only include things where the inspection number starts with 104. So now I can run that, and we'll see I'm going to get 45 items. Okay, so I can start to drill down and drill down and drill down, and I can also expand and expand and expand. So I can say, okay, that's great. Now I want to know, what about the products that were involved in those inspections? So I can say, give me inspection for enforcement response products, and then for enforcement response products, I want to get the product name listed. And then I could filter those and say, only give me ones where the product name includes Roundup or whatever. In this case, I'll just display the product name, and then I can run that query, and we'll see, okay, so I've got all these inspections, and then the product names are going to be over here on the... So it really, if you spend a lot of time in it, you can build some really significant queries in here. And then when I've got things set up the way I want, and it's producing a useful report that I may want to run again sometime, I can save it. So I'll click Save As, and it's broken in test right now because I'm in the process of rolling out the new function that lets me share this with people. So if it breaks, you'll just get my apologies in advance. Oh, it did work. It is saved. So now I have a list of saved queries, and this is my saved query here. And anytime I come back into this screen, even if I start from scratch, I can reconstitute that query just by clicking load. And that'll reset it up, and then I can run my report again. So it's a really neat tool. It was something completely new and different that we'd never done before. But as sort of another advantage that you'll find of maybe having this data in CalPEATS as opposed to having all this data entered into a Acela and then transmitted to CalPEATS is hopefully you'll get into this advanced query tool. Because one of the things that Steph and I were talking about at lunch is, in terms of a transition plan, if this is the route you go, we want to obviously make sure that all the reporting that you were getting from Acela, which may be a lot of more managerial, we have a lot of reporting in here that's directed at state reporting requirements like the Pramer and process sort of staff management, but we don't have a lot of higher level management reporting in CalPEATS. In fact, at the spring conference last week, Ruben Arroyo made a big pitch for getting much more dashboard level, executive level reporting into all of our systems. So I just wanted to mention the advanced query tool. Like I say, it's not necessarily anything that's directly associated with investigations and enforcement responses any more than it is inspections, but it's certainly something that the more advanced staff in the county should be aware of, whether you want to get into it and write your own queries or you're just aware of it, that you can have someone, your designated advanced query person in the county, go get data for you that isn't on any of those reports I already showed you.